is the guy that every coach should be, basically. You see him in a press conference and you might be a little nervous, especially when he was introduced. But all that is so far in the rearview mirror now that the season has started. And all that is so far in the rearview mirror now that they're 1-0 on the season. So one of the things that he talked about yesterday was after you have a blowout win that nobody expected, and you saw the guys dancing in the locker room. We showed you the clip yesterday from Greg Ward's Instagram account where everyone's dancing in the locker room, having themselves a good time. Enjoy the win now, bask in it now, and then you move on to the San Francisco 49ers, as Nick Sirianni and Jeffrey Lurie just said, as you just heard him right there. All that's great. But now it's a matter of putting everything in the rearview mirror and saying, okay, now it's on to round 2. As Nick Sirianni continues this boxing theme throughout the season. And one of the things I also thought was interesting was that if you listen to the press conferences after they won the game against the Falcons, almost every single person mentions, hey, that was just round 1. Now it's on to round 2. And that's when you hear professional players, that's when you hear pro football players talk about adopting the mantra, the aura, the attitude, and the characteristics of their head coach. When the head coach instills a theme in the season, a boxing theme, it seems that everybody will reference it. When the head coach also introduces a dog mentality to this team, everybody embraces it. And what I appreciate so much about this dog mentality is that it's not about being an underdog. Like, this has fallen under criticism, and it's odd that it falls under criticism because it worked for the Eagles in their Super Bowl season. But the underdog mentality, we're the underdogs. Everyone's against us. Nobody believes in us. We're the underdogs. The thing I appreciate about the dog mentality is that to be an underdog, you have to be not that good. You have to be bad, essentially. Like, people have to look at you and go, oh, this team isn't it. And that's not always a good thing. Like, hey, look, if that's where you thrive and that's the home run and that's the comfort zone, if that's where your bread's buttered, then, hey, bask in that. Fine. But like, every once in a while, I'd rather just be the really good team. I'd rather just have that team that's really good. And maybe they can still keep that chip on their shoulder of being underdogs. But I like the idea of the dog mentality, not the underdog mentality per se. Again, if that's what works for the Eagles, that's what works for the Eagles. Fine. But sooner or later, like, don't you just want to be the really good team? And I think that's where the dog mentality comes in. And I think that's where Nick Sirianni is trying to kind of have a play on the old school with the new school. And sometimes when you don't have an abrupt change, it's easier to adapt, obviously. So when you look at and listen to Nick Sirianni in the postgame, in the locker room, or listen to his postgame press conference, and he's talking about the mentality, I think a lot of players will take to that because you don't ever have to be bad to just be a dog. To be an underdog, you have to have people look down on you. And yeah, sure, you could use it as motivation. But when you're just a dog, it's not necessarily as much motivation as it is swagger. It's confidence. And I want this team feeling confident. I don't want them feeling overconfident. Fine line. But I want them feeling confident. Because as I said from the get-go, this is a team that can be really, really good if their quarterback is really, really good. Now, the only reason I highlight that obvious point is because no one really knew what Jalen Hurts was going to be. And if Jalen Hurts can be the deodorant to mistakes, the way Carson Wentz couldn't be last year, the way Carson Wentz had been, maybe in 2019, for instance, well, then this team can go places. If the offensive line stays healthy, this team can go places. And then you go on down the list of ifs. And I don't want to go down that long list because during a 17-game football season, of course, that's a pretty long list of ifs. But if you do focus on the one position, the guy that can be the ultimate deodorant, the ultimate coverall to a lot of bad things, that can be the quarterback. And if Jalen Hurts plays a lot of these games this year the way he played on Sunday, this team's going to win a lot of football games. And a double-digit season is not a far cry from reality when it comes to this football team, especially when you look around the rest of the NFC East and see what went on this past weekend, especially with Washington. They're already on Heineke as their quarterback now. You already have Ryan Fitzpatrick on IR. So there's a lot of things going on in the NFC East right now that actually go in the Eagles' favor outside of just being 1-0 when everyone else is 0-1. But here's Nick Sirianni talking about that. I almost did it. Nick Sirianni talking about that dog mentality when it comes to the Eagles and not getting too far ahead of themselves by being just 1-0 on the season.
We talked about it yesterday at the press conference. Dog mentality is just not like, hey, I made a good play here. so I'm playing the next play, right? That's part of it, right? Or, hey, I made a bad play here, and I'm playing the next play and having this short memory, right? It's also a week-to-week thing. It's a day-to-day thing, right? So if I think about on Wednesday when we come back out here, if I think about Wednesday how we played well in the Atlanta game, then I'm going to get my butt kicked this upcoming Sunday. So it is just living in the moment of what you're in there. And so we talk about dog mentality. We really talk about, like, I know I probably sound like a broken record with it saying, hey, we just want to get better every day. And that truly is the goal. It's not, that's something I'm saying to the players too. I say always a good coaching point this is what I always say to the players. Always a good coaching point is when you know what I'm about to say after you do something, or, good or bad. So it's the same thing here. Like, we truly live in the moment of how are we going to get better today? How are we going to leave this building better today than we were yesterday? Well, if you're constantly thinking about the past, or you've got a big ego based off of how you played and not thinking about that, you won't do that. So it's just me reminding them, but I think also, they innately have this ability to do that as well. We talk about it all the time. Players talk about it all the time. We got our shirts, right? We got our dog mentality shirts, and so we're just, that's us, just how we kind of go about it. So it's my job as a coach to make sure that importance of, no letdowns happens. But in all honesty, like, we won one game, we got to go out there and we got to do it again. That's what good teams do. They win. They come out on the field every Sunday ready to play, regardless of what happened the game before.